Hello, I'm Master Sergeant Tony Viney with the 122nd Fighter Wing in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And this video is some very basic user knowledge on the Unify or Siemens terminals. Several people have asked what the difference between Siemens and Unify is. Siemens changed their name in the U.S. Back in 2014, and they are now known as Unify, also known as ATOS, A-T-O-S. To add to the confusion. To make things easy, the terms ATOS, Unify, and Siemens are interchangeable. So, for the most part, I'll be calling it a Unify terminal. That seems to be the easiest and most recognizable currently. We'll get into it. Again, this is an unofficial video. By no means am I saying that anything that I do here is policy for the Air Force. By no means am I saying that you have to do things this way. And by no means am I saying this is official. There will not be any OPSEC in this video either. So phone numbers have been changed, things like that, so that we can pretty much operate on a very unclassified level and share this openly. The video does need a link to open it. You can't find it by searching on the various platforms. Therefore, feel free to share within the Air Force any of the links that have brought you to this video, but please don't share them outside of official channels. We'll get started. Some basic common operator items. Up here in the very top of your Unify console, you'll find 4 buttons, or 5 buttons rather. These 5 buttons, 4 of them are working currently, will provide us some very basic menu, telephone directory, call memory, main page when that one's working. It'll be working here in a few moments, and last page functions. Second set of buttons you see here, dial pad, center menu, speaker settings, which we use differently now, right click button, so it sets the touch screen to do a right click instead of a left click, and help. So if I want help on this button, it'll tell me what that button is. If I want help on that, it tells me what that is. So, very helpful. This is our page selection, so you'll notice numerous pages in here. Mine may look different than yours. Individual mileage may vary. And then these buttons just go back and forth between the pages. So if I want to advance to the next page, you'll see main page, speed dials, announcements. Now if I go backwards, there goes speed dials, announcements, main page. Over here on the left side, you'll find on most terminals in the Unify setups, these first buttons will be your lines. So for instance, mine, the command post primary line is 216. My office is 190. Our information line for the base is 700. 176 is an administrative line that we use. And 799 is deployment information and anything we need to get out to other members as far as perhaps base closure, anything like that. So it's a line we use for that type of administrative work. Over here, orange on my console, maybe yellow on yours. These are my hotlines. Door phone is a hotline as well, but I got a different color, so it's easy to push. Macro closed command post. I apologize to my active duty counterparts. At 1700 Monday through Friday, we close the command post here. And this button forwards those phones, put those phones in forward. You'll see that indication to go to the command post cell phone. Now these are the return function and a dot. That means it is busy and no answer forward. Therefore, if I'm on this line, it'll forward to the command post cell phone, or since I've got the dot, that means it's no answer. So if nobody answers the line and it rings more than 3 times, then it will forward to the command post cell phone. This button puts it in immediate transfer mode. A line to update my information line, and another macro that cancels the forwards on these phones. So if I push that, it'll do just like a macro on a Word document or an Excel document. It goes through and does several tasks. I'll show you how to set those up in one of the administrator videos that we do. So this video is just for the users primarily. Over here on the right side, you'll find your radio controls. These control your radios. You'll see my PRC 117 is my primary aircraft radio. CCNet is my primary FM on-base radio. I've got another CCNet button that would allow me to talk on the commander's net. However, that radio is set up primarily to use for mass notification. So every radio on base, when you tune to a channel, so for instance, if I was in POL and my radio was tuned to POL, it's actually monitoring 2 different channels. The first one being my POL, which is the workshop. The second one is the command post mass notification channel. That way when I put out lightning warnings, everybody on base with a radio gets that warning. It was set up by our ComFlight here. It's very, very handy. Another macro key. What's in this area on most systems may vary from base to base, but then this bottom right corner will be the same from base to base. You'll see MacroDex Conference. That is actually a conference room. If you call somebody or somebody calls you and you want to put them in a conference, you, with them selected on the line, so their number would be up here, I hit MacroDex Conference, it automatically transfers them into a conference room. Once I get everybody together in the conference room and I want to join, I hit the Join DAX button. If I'm forming a virtual CAT, maybe I want to join that. And then when the conference is over, you can hit Kill DAX. It'll also automatically go dead after about 7 minutes on most setups. I've extended mine. This terminal that we're looking at is the one on my desk. I've extended mine to 2 hours because I do conferences quite often with other units and things like that. So, again, the administrator video, I can show you how to do those types of setups. Handset to speaker key. I don't use this very often. It's handy sometimes. For instance, listen to my automated weather system. I hit that handset to speaker key and it comes out the speakers. But if you need to interact, it's not a speaker phone. So if you need to interact with that person, you have to go back to that call. It'll show up in the bottom of your call queue down here. I'll show you how the call queue works in a few moments. But it'll go to the bottom of the call queue, and in order to talk back to them, you have to select them again. And then when you disconnect, it'll go back to the speaker, and it can be a little bit of a pain to manage, so I don't use it very often. The kill line feature kills a line. Rather than just disconnecting, it will make sure that both ends disconnect. So it forces the call off. Sometimes you'll have trouble with your hotlines that won't get hung up on the other end. Well, that button will force hang up that line. So it'll force hang up both ends. Even if they're not on the Unify console, it sends a signal to kill the line on the other end as well. This button may vary at your location. I have it set for park and unpark. Most bases it's set for conference. The conference feature is also available in the MacroDex conference. That's why I went ahead and took it off. I use call park. And the reason I use call park is because we have some telephones, and in order to transfer a call from the console to a telephone, I can park it and then go to the telephone and unpark. Open listening is pretty much the same as handset speaker, only you can answer the call into open listening. We don't use it very often at all. Consultation is used with the transfer key. So if I'm going to initiate a transfer, I would actually do a consultation first, where I tell the other person, hey, I've got Colonel so-and-so on the line, or I've got Airman Snuffy on the line, so I'll transfer to you in just a second. Then I would hit the transfer key. That's what a consultation is. Most people don't actually do the consultation. They just hit consultation, dial the number, and then hit transfer. That's fine. It's transferring a call in the blind, but that's fine. That's a common practice. You may see SNR on this key. I've changed mine to an LNR, but you'll notice the other pages have SNR. Saved number redial. Whatever number I dialed last, I hit SNR, and it will save that number. So, for instance, if I call 478-3489, hit save number redial, disconnect because it was busy. Now I can hit that button again. It just dials that number right back up. With LNR, obviously, it just dials the last number that I dialed. It's a little bit more handy than SNR. The SNR will save it for a couple of days. I only need to know what the last number I dialed was usually. And then the disconnect key only appears when you're on a call. And that's how you disconnect a line. Different from kill line. This one just disconnects your end. Kill line kills both sides. Down here in the bottom, I have some special features. My crash net, primary crash net, and secondary crash net are down here. We did transfer our secondary crash net off of the Unify consoles. The reason we had it on here was because our operations are on this as well. The Air National Guard went and bought Alert 3 consoles for all of the secondary crash nets, and we are quickly finding out that was a mistake. We will probably be transferring it back to our Unify consoles sometime soon. The contract is now over for the Alert 3s, and the parts are very expensive, and they break often. Every time it rains, we have another port that goes down. So, Big Voice is our indoor paging system, so all the bases or all the buildings on base have an indoor paging. This one calls all of them at the same time. The emergency fan is a fan that we have. It's a contact switch. It turns on a fan, runs for 12 minutes, and exchanges the air in the command post 3 times in the 12 minutes that it runs. So it's pretty handy. If somebody burns toast in the kitchen, doesn't set off the smoke detectors or anything like that, we can get rid of the smell pretty quickly. Also good when we have command post Taco Bell lunches. So next page is my speed dials page. In most configurations, it will be speed dials. You can program these. These are programmed by the administrator. I will cover that in the administration video. However, I'm going to show you real quickly. Some administrators leave them unlocked for people. If your administrator does, you can change that key. So for instance, if I go to this one and make it the opera desk. So those are available. Some bases leave them unlocked. Some bases lock them and only the administrator can change them. That is up to your administrator. Go back to the main page. Use my main page button that showed up because I was off of the main page this time. And that is very basically how most of these screens are laid out. Yours may be different. What I didn't talk about is these center boxes and the functions of each of these buttons. So let's talk about the center boxes first. Your Unify console should have 2 handsets hooked up. They are not the same handset. In other words, if I'm on a call on handset 1 and I pick up handset 2, it's just like a completely different phone. In order to use that phone, I'd have to select that handset by clicking on it. And in addition, kind of late in the video, but touching and using a mouse are both the same on the Unify consoles. Most locations, they've taken the keyboards and mice off of them because you do use the touch screen. That's fine and is a better way to do it. I'm using the mouse to kind of indicate how things work. So you can see where I'm clicking and would have touched. But if I want to go to handset 2, it's just that easy. First button is our menu button. I showed you this a little bit earlier, but now the functions of it. We can log out of the terminal. This screen occasionally you'll get if you have a question about what the password is. There is no password. Just click OK. It'll take you right back in. Receive calls only mode. You won't use this very often. If you have someone who for some reason gets confused on dialing out, you can put it in receive only. No real reason for it though. Disconnect all connections means you can disconnect just like this kill line does. This will disconnect every call on that console. If you have calls in the call queue, it will also dump those, so use it sparingly. And refresh configuration. If I make a change at the server level and push it out, I may want to refresh the configuration. It will tell you in the bottom left corner here there's a new configuration available. So again, the administrator video, I'll show you that. The second tab in that menu key is Common Functions. You can see who else is logged into the terminals. Hit the search button. It'll show you the list of everybody logged in, so you can see our base operations, our SOF, Command Post Junior and Senior Controller computers, and my own, the NCOIC. You can see what configuration you're on. It'll tell you which configuration is logged in currently to this computer. So you can see I'm the NCOIC. SPM assignments. You also see this button up here. Those work a little bit differently now. Those will be covered in the administrator video. Don't modify the passwords. There is no password for the Unify screens. There doesn't have to be. ComFlights may tell you that there must be a password on it. The password is on the computer, not the software. So this does not need a password. The computer does. And the administrator video will cover that password. Ringtones. You can change the ring of various lines. I'd recommend not changing it here. Let your administrator change that, and I'll show the administrators how to do that in that video. Button programming, you don't have to worry about this button. Anything that you can change, you can either have your administrator change, or you can change it by right-clicking on the button. So I wouldn't mess with that button at all. And DKA and DKM automatic page change. What this is when you hit a speed dial key, what do you want the computer to do? So if it's set to same page, then it doesn't change at all, just like it says there, no page change. If I go to main work level, okay that. Now when I hit a speed dial key, it automatically takes me back to my main first page. So that's how that works. Shortcuts. There are some shortcuts if you do have a keyboard hooked up. Most people don't. And you don't need one. But for instance, to answer a call when you've got the keyboard hooked up, you just have to hit the space bar. If you want to call back to the number that just called you, you hit Control B. Disconnect functions, hard key functions. Voice recording, Control R, speech unit up, down, cursor down, cursor up keys. So you can set those shortcuts. Again, better for your administrator to do that. And once again, the help section. To find out what version of Unify software you've got, you can click that information button, and it'll show you this menu. So I'm on version 3, release 4.161.0. That's handy sometimes when you call in for service. Again, we'll cover that in the administrator video. Next button is your directory. This is an electronic telephone directory. It works just like an electronic phone book, just like the global. So if I type in a name, if I'm looking for Staff Sergeant Clapper, I can pull him up. You'll see that I have 2 entries for him. The reason is some people use analog phones on base. Some people are using digital phones. The digital phones all send the area code and phone number. The analog phones, when their caller ID comes through, it only shows the last 7 digits. So I put both entries in there so that regardless of what type of phone that person has on their desk, it always pulls it up. I also had my engineer go in and program it so that if I dial a number with just 260-478-3216, it tells the base telephone switch to only dial the 478-3216 so that it's easy for me to just select a name. So that's how that works. So General Renwick has been promoted. If I want to change the information in the electronic telephone directory, I simply click Edit. And I would edit both of those entries. As I said, OPSEC, General Renwick no longer works at the 122nd Fighter Wing. That's not his phone number anymore, so no sense in trying to call it to see who it is. My speed dial buttons. I showed you a little bit about them. They are pretty handy. Once again, your administrator can change those, or if they have given you permission to change them by unlocking the button, I can show them how to do that as well. Announcements. I happen to have the broadcast feature for our DAX. The DAX is kind of the digital conferencing system of the Unify switches. Very handy to have the broadcast feature. If you don't have it, ask your commander for $8,000 to add it. If you do have it, make sure you're using it. Super handy for those repeating announcements like heat stress conditions, wind chills, lightning warnings and watches, tornadoes, lockdowns, FPCon announcements. We have to do a FPCon announcement every month. Wind advisories, reveille, retreat, and taps. I do it differently now. I do it through ad hoc, but I still have the buttons on here. Here's our secondary crash net we used to have set up. Again, I changed it. There's a separate video I've already produced about how I did that. It worked out pretty cool. It's a lot better than any of the secondary crashes on the market. The command post doesn't run the secondary crash. It just happens to be on our consoles. That is run by base operations, who also has consoles with us. That's what makes it so handy. They have a telephone at their station that gives a visual indication of the status, whether that person's online or whether the phone's ringing or what have you, or if it's on hook. It completes their regulation requirements and also is very handy. It works a lot better than the console we have now, and as I said, the consoles we have now may have to go away because of their cost. Also on this page I have the sirens. So these buttons here control our sirens. I can do short steady tone, which is a 30 to 40 second steady tone, and a short wavering tone, which is just about a minute of wavering. And then I have also the 5-minute full length ones down here at the bottom. These are done through contacts. Contacts are a little bit different. We'll see back here with, I mentioned the emergency fan. You can hear it click when I hit the button. You'll hear the contacts click in the background. So what that does, that fan exchanges the air several times in the command post. But these are contact buttons. Also, you'll see two pink contact buttons that unlock our inner and outer doors of the entrapment area. So you should be able to hear that a little bit in the background. The call memory button. This is a list of the recent calls that were made from this phone. So you can see these are the people who have called or I have called. If I just want to look at incoming numbers, I can see them there. If I look at outgoing numbers only, they are there. Now, if I want to call somebody back, for instance, I called the Fort Wayne ASOS. If I want to call them again, I can go up here, select handset 1 or 2. Normally, it'll be whatever one is selected on the main page. Hit the green telephone button, and now it'll call that number for me. Pretty handy to call back. So you look them up, hit that button, it'll call them back. Also, if somebody calls and I don't recognize the number, actually, let's go to the incoming. If I don't recognize the number, then I can add that number to the electronic telephone directory. So, for instance, this one here. Add to electronic telephone directory. JFHQ, hit OK, and now that'll be in the telephone directory. It won't show on the screen again, but the next time that number calls me, it will display. The dial pad, everybody knows what that does. Right click button I talked about a little bit earlier, but again it puts the touch screen into right click mode. So whatever you touch will now be right clicked. I'm going to show you a secret here. A lot of people don't realize this. If you're having trouble hearing out of the handset, or if the handset's way too loud, right click button, click on the handset you want to adjust, and you can adjust the volume up and down. So I always leave mine one notch up. Default from the Unify engineers, they'll come about 4 volume clicks up, and they are very loud. So I turned mine down. Do the same on this line. It's a separate line. I keep them up 1 notch usually. You can also go into the properties and adjust the handset manually. I don't know why that's turned down, but it isn't anymore. So that's the standard functions of the main page. We'll go into some other pages here that you've got. I happen to have my QRCs loaded. So these are all conferences. They call all the parties on my QRCs. I have I'll show you how to do this in the administrator video, but I have it set so that people are not live when they join the conference. They can listen, but they can't talk. They can hit the star key, and that will put them in the conference to be able to talk. So it calls them. They get a recording. This is the command post with a quick reaction checklist notification. Press star to participate in the conference, and then puts them in the conference. If they didn't press star, that's fine. They just won't be able to talk to me. But at the end of these QRCs, I do run a roll call to see who is on. Now I can also go to my server and find out who's on, but that's sometimes time consuming. Some people's servers aren't located right there at their desk. So however it works, I can make sure that I get the information and we can move on. This has been very handy. I don't have all the QRCs loaded. I only have some of the more common ones. For instance, QRC 108 is a building fire. QRC 202 is a ground emergency. Aircraft emergencies, in-flight emergencies are handled on secondary crash net, which is not mine to run. I have no further notifications outside of the secondary crash, so I don't have that QRC loaded. You'll see that the buttons are color-coded: red, yellow, green, blue, gray, and another set of yellow. If you look in my QRC books, all the QRC 100 series are red, have a red tab on them. All the QRC 200s have yellow tabs, etc. So they're color-coded. The clear tabs are the 500 series, and that's for weather. So this has been very handy for us. Everybody has a radio page. This is a place where you can change things up a little bit. Instead of the commander's net being the primary, I can select it for the operations net or the maintenance net or the fire net. Pretty handy. You should also have a guide with those codes so that you can change it on the fly. If I'm on page 1 and select the commander's net, but then I want to change to the fire net, I should know that code. On my base, it's star 4. It will always be star something. We'll change that channel for you. Big voice, we talk about my indoor paging system that we have on this base. This is how I can call individual bases or individual buildings. Great for evacuating buildings for various reasons. I don't need to call the whole base and tell them that the metal shop is evacuating. I can just select that building and evacuate them. So very handy system to have. Spare lines are some extra lines that I have, but your base will have an outlines page. So if you just start dialing, for instance, if I go back to my main page, select my dial pad, and call 4783489, you won't see one of my line keys light up because it's not coming in on, or not going out rather, on one of those lines. Go to the outlines page and you'll find these are the outbound circuits. So pretty handy. Especially if you're in the habit of switching handsets. So if handset 2 is selected for the junior controller, you're on handset 1, you dial a call, you can quickly flip over to this page, handset 2, and then pick up the line that's got the green box on it. So that's how that works. Speaker page is how you change your speaker settings. So our speaker A's are a ringer. Our speaker B's are the aircraft radio. Speaker C is the LMR FM radio. And speaker D is set up to monitor UHF and VHF aircraft radios so that my radio does not have to be set to the same channel as operations. I can listen in on what they're hearing. And then some of these are those macros that I spoke about before. So for instance, let's do my cancel forward macro. This is nothing but a speed dial key that dials that number. So if I right click on it and edit, it picks up the line. So it's precedence line it picks up is 4783216, my main phone line, and it dials pound 91 pound. Then it disconnects. Then it does the same thing on extension 190, which is the line to my office. So it cancels all the forwards on there. Since it is a macro page, it only does these functions. I add it to my first page as a macro button, and it'll do those steps in order, just like a macro in Excel where it does steps in order. It'll do those steps in order. So if I hit it, it selects 216 and unforwards it, selects 190 and unforwards it. Same thing with a macro close command post. It forwards the line, so it'll go through both of them, unforward them, then it will set the forwarding. And it'll just keep working until it's done. It takes about 25 seconds because I've got a couple of delays in it for a special function that I have to do when I close the command post. Then there's the help button. So the help button will provide help for some functions. It's okay. It's not the best help system. But if I hit the help button and need help on this line, it's an action key. It's a line key. Line key type, color of the tab, tells you what the status is. If you want to know what the status of a phone call is, if you're on a line, it should be red and should have the handset number you're on. This isn't how many people are on the call. This is the handset number you're on. If I pick up this line on handset 1, you'll see that I have 1 on 190 and 2 on 216. Kill it. Kill it. Now nobody's connected. If there's somebody else on the line, so for instance, if I'm on here listening in and somebody else picks up that line from another console, there will be a two little person indication in there, kind of an icon of two little people. That does happen often where somebody's on a line. You may be talking to the wife, talking to the girlfriend, talking to your fitness monitor, and you want to be the only one on that call. Once I make that call, let's go over here and call my ASOS. If I want to be the only one on that line, I can hit privacy, and you'll see a lock come up there. Now you can't go to another terminal and pick up that line. It won't let you. So that's a way you can call privately. You also see this stays red. When you kill the call, it resets it. Privacy is turned off. So that is the very basic functions. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call. Once again, I will be making an administrator video so that the administrators have a chance to see how to do things on the consoles. I'll break those up into individual tasks and then also do an overarching how to do things. Thanks for joining me. If you have any questions, feel free to give me a call or email anthony.vining@us.af.mil or DSN 778-3190.